and it was held at the African American Institute, which was my first time
Nice.
doing a trans event. But like my
Nice.
thing is, I'm very big on like
Very transgressive.
how do we look outside of the academy? So
Yep.
maybe I branch on like how can we get
Yep.
involved with things outside of the school, or how can students, because I
That's
think
a great
that for me,
conversation.
I'm just like what's at a university wasn't enough for me. And me being a ball kid, I had to like search the country
Yeah.
to
Mm-hmm.
find what I needed,
Of
and
Mm-hmm.
course.
so it's like oftentimes I feel like what I need is outside of
I
the
love I
institutional
love that
walls.
as a group. I think a lot about the fact that my people aren't actually in higher education, so my work has to be broader than the institution.
No, and it's so funny at my school, like Northeastern's like in Boston, it's progressive liberal. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing this work for Black queer students and trans students of color, and like
Where they at
I'm the only,
though?
there's no other girls here. Like I'm the only,
No, where
Yeah.
they at
I'm the
though?
only butch queen here, and
You're
like,
like, I am
and,
the
and,
girl.
and
It
I'm
is
not,
me.
and I'm not the only butch queen, because there's obviously other gay men, but I'm
Right.
like openly Black, gay, queer, Afro. Like there's
Yeah.
no one. Like so it's like I'm
Who you
doing
doing
this
it for?
work, but it's like, am I doing it for the school for performance, or like
Okay.
who's
Well, all right.
Sometimes I find that when I'm working with communities and like particularly like working with like young people, sometimes it's like I'd be thinking of
What do
how
you
I'm
want
gonna
to talk
plan this
about?
curriculum of how are we gonna generate this curriculum of what they want to do and da 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 such and such. And it's like I work myself into this
Yeah.
like really like
Please.
tizzy place, and
Look
I'm
at
like,
this ass.
I could ask.
Yeah.
And so that's something that y'all could do, that maybe like after y'all do y'all individual like presentations of this is where I was and this was self and this is what I did. Now, if two or three people want to offer what y'all are wanting to receive from this space based on what we just said, okay, we could break out into the groups of blank and then execute the conversations from there. Because sometimes I like it's like workshops are hard because it's always like you're in this balance of like how am I being thoughtful in the planning of this space so that it goes a certain direction and don't go left, but where is the room that you leave for it just to kind of
Like
happen like organically?
we each had our projects, right? We each like did this fellowship, but like what were some of the challenges of being an Arcus fellow for you guys, or just doing the work with the project?
One of the benefits where I was that I was already halfway through this project and conceptualizing it when the fellowship came along, and so like it was just a part of the work I was already getting paid to do as student staff. So I think in that sense, I think I had more institutional support built in through my mentor already. Then for me, like the hardest part was like just communicating with whoever our mentors were supposed to be at the institute, and I was like, or because they like I mean, I also was like, I've been doing this for like 3 4 years at this point. Like, I think I wanted something deeper. Yeah, like I think the best part was, and this is not too cheesy, was just meeting like the three, like all of us being together and talking through just
What
various, yeah, because like that's always the most beneficial for me. Is like, yeah, like that does.
I think what was the challenge for me was, so because I feel like my project was almost trying to get into what you were doing, like by just nature of your experience on the campus. Mine was actively saying, okay, Spelman's over here, but feeling like we were only always doing everything like on our campus. And one, we weren't even connecting to Morehouse and Clark Atlanta's queer organizations enough, just
Yeah, like
within
sister
us.
schools.
Right. Just within us in the AUC, like the Atlanta University Center, like we weren't connecting enough. And I was wanting to reach out and make all these broader connections to the other colleges and universities in Atlanta. So, like, okay, how do we connect to Emory? How do we connect to Agnes Scott? How do we connect to Georgia State? And my main problem was connecting. Just like I think with it being me being a student organizer, trying to connect with other student organizers, folks wouldn't answer their email until like 10 weeks later, or like,
I want to be clear around too, around like how we talk about caring and not even self care, like how we talk about healing work, right? Like how do we talk about intentionally, like I had to go sit with this woman in the foundation who didn't understand why we need to cut a trans person a check or give them cash, and we're not asking for receipts for what surgery they got. Like, like we're not, like that's not okay. And that's, and I think that's the bulk of the work, right? Is like those type of interactions where like, you are really dense. Like you do not like, you really want an itemized list of surgeries that someone had, and you don't think anything's wrong with that. Or I had a lot of roadblocks with just institutional processes. Like I was trying to just like, it was so hard to give away $3,000. I did not think giving an institution
it's like, I want you to use
would be this hard. I was like, take this check, like, and it just like
Use
wouldn't
it.
for months. So I was like, take it. Here's what it needs to be used for.
Well, we're in this new culture now where everyone wants us to say they're doing so much or they're moving, they're working on this project. It's like a lot of this student activism is so misguided, and it's like it's not leading to any real change.
And I don't actually think it's our jobs to be concerned with institutional change either, though. Like, I think that's one of the things, well, one of the many things that bugs me about higher education. It's like, I'm having to fight right now with people around this notion that it's the BSU's responsibility to institutionalize change
That's what
at my university. And I'm like, not putting black liberation on the backs of black undergrads
Yeah.
at a predominantly white institution with a 1% black population. Like,
So maybe that's
canceled.
so maybe that's a distinction that I'm trying to get at, is that it feels like it's one thing when you're doing this and it's like, okay, I have been given these grant funds to create a space of support for a community on my campus that is in need. Okay, great. Like, it's like when you are in that experience of like, okay, you have these funds to do something, to make some type of change happen, because I believe programming can be supported. True. Right. I think it can create a transformation or spaces for it to start. What is the issue is when LGBTQ, queer, plus everything, student groups are the organizing bodies of any type of change. So, what was your relationship to how all of this was going and panning out?
Deep down, wanted to, like, my project was like really successful. So like, when I did the first event, I did this event in 2014, which was one of the first Black queer events at the African American Institute. Then the trans event in 2016. Last October, it was like October for Northeastern, and they had like the whole month was LGBT of color events at the African American Institute. And I'm like, you know, and it warmed my heart. 'Cause I'm like, you know what, like I didn't have that.
Yeah.
But the next girl is gonna have that. The next butch queen who's ready and who has a vision is already gonna be supported. It's already gonna have people saying, hey, you know what, this is a space for you. And I struggled so much of like going to the Black space and then not feeling comfortable because I like was bullied in high school, so I was like, okay, I don't really feel comfortable here. And then I spent like 2 semesters in the LGBT resource center, and it was just so white. Like I just, so I don't know. It felt good to see that.
At transgender-led nonprofit Casa Ruby, the only LGBTQ bilingual and multicultural organization in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, more than 30,000 social and human services are provided to more than 6,000 people each year. Founded in 2012 by Ruby Corrado and a small group of dedicated volunteers, today, Casa Ruby is one of the nation's premier community hubs and perfect place to see how ballroom culture intertwines with community outreach.
Each week it keeps getting bigger and bigger. So it was something that we started as a little kiki ball. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the DC Trans Ball. So that's like our annual thing. It's a fundraiser, but we thought it was something to have kids to come in and have a place to come Friday night with, I mean, hello, in Washington, D.C., you get all this youth here. So Casa Ruby is a nonprofit organization it's an LGBTQ nonprofit organization that is trans-led and trans survivors that has shed the path towards like making people see us a different way. And this is just something we started, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. I mean, I really love it.
How does it feel to be one of the few organizations that's trans-led in the nation?
It's really inspiring, especially with this new administration that like has had so many like jabs at our community. It really makes me feel good, proud to be a part of an organization that I believe in so much.
So what are you looking forward to tonight? What categories?
I just like to see the girls fall out and stuff and Vogue and you know, and just have fun. And just it's a place like you can think of it as a clubhouse, right? It's a place where LGBTQ people come to be themselves, not be judged, want to be them, like just be with other people like themselves and have fun and Vogue and you know having fun. So
you were at the conference, now you're here. How does it feel to be bouncing back from these two different spaces?
It is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I barely have enough time to sleep. But it's great. And the work that I'm doing, it's like, you know, not too many people are touching with a 10-foot pole. So I'm really feel honored and like inspired to continue to do more. And, you know, we started with like we started with 5 years ago, 800 square feet. And now we just moved into this 15,000 square foot place. So it's really nice and really awesome. And we're going to be housing 50 LGBTQ youth to be able to stay here and have meals and everything. And this is just the beginning.
After a night out on the town, I'm feeling immersed in the energy of the weekend. I'm witnessing how diverse and intersectional the current movement for LGBTQ equality is firsthand here in DC. But how does a movement that tackles a wide array of diverse and intersecting forms of oppression centralize the needs of everyone? Which communities within the LGBT community are prioritized in large movements like this, and which communities are left behind? Today, I'm looking to grapple with how my work as an Arcus Fellow fits in the larger movement of the Creating Change Conference.
What work are you working on right now?
So right now, I am here to educate myself on how to continue showing up for the LGBT community as a whole. But one of my main passions and focus is the fact that trans women of color are being slaughtered and murdered at an alarming rate every day in this country, and nobody is saying anything about it.
Can you tell me a little bit about how like your experience working with college students has been like?
Yes. So I had one college student, and believe it or not, a lot of the injustice, harm, and discrimination that the transgender population face comes from family. It comes from home. It comes from the people that you think would really pour the love and the affection and support.
Use this opportunity, learning about what we did on our campuses, and also what Charles and what Sam can tell you both about Arcus and about the California Institute of Integral Studies. You can post these opportunities on your various campuses, and CIIS will send emails and reach out and ask for applications. But I bring this to your attention because another fellowship that I won, I found out about it through a flyer in an elevator. And this was at an institution that previously had no recognition or highlight toward LGBT students, let alone LGBTQ students of color. And it was just something that I happened to see somewhere. And so you never know who you'll be able to reach, who you'll be able to speak to, and who you'll attract by advertising simple things like the fellowship that we're here today on behalf of Arcus and CIIS. So our fellowship is a continued project. It just wasn't a one and done, here you go, good luck. This is, we're investing in you, we're investing in your institutions and the work that you've done to make sure that long after you graduate, long after you leave, your projects will hold space at your institutions, and the work that you do, you can extend that to other people. And so
Before I talk about my project, I want to briefly talk about what led me to want this project and what brought me to this work. So, a little louder. Can you guys hear me now? So, sorry guys. So, I look at my life right now, and like I just finished school in December, and I look at the work I'm doing, and I look at the work I have to do on campus and through my co-op, Northeastern Co-op program, where I got to intern with the Temp magazine for a year, and I've gotten to like work with celebrities, I've creative directed, I've gotten to write amazing pieces, interview people, I've gotten to do things I've never like to do on campus. Like when I walk onto Northeastern, like I literally am like a legend on campus now. But I think back, Northeastern's a 5-year school, and that's a long time. Like, you grow a lot in 5 years. And I think back to the time when I didn't feel safe on campus, when I was gonna drop out, when I didn't think I had support, when I was struggling with housing, I had just lost my retail job. And there was a period where I was really like, because of the support of you administrators, I was able to, and people who work in offices like the US, I was able to say, you know what, I can make this space for me. So I wanted to make a project where LGBT students of color could feel like they have a home on campus. I think Northeastern's a very progressive and liberal school. We have our African American Institute, we have an Asian Student Center, we have Latino, Latinx Student Center, we have an LGBT resource center that's all funded. A lot of schools don't have that at all. So I wasn't developing a project where at a school where there wasn't work ready to be done. But I felt like, you know what, all of these different organizations work within their own communities, when actually all these communities are intersected, and intersectionality is so important. So like, how can I bridge a gap and build a bridge between the African American Institute and the LGBT Research Center? How can we make these two spaces work together so that they can not only do better work, but continue to serve? Because I think when we think of like diversity and inclusion, it's like, hey, we're including you, but it's like, you have something to learn from me. You have something to learn from my community. My community has something to take away from what you guys are doing. So I think I really want to build a conversation, and I ended up working really closely with Levi. So like the fellowship gives us one campus mentor, but I had like five. So like we ended up having the first Trans Day of Remembrance. That was a public event at Northeastern at the African American Institute, and this is their 50th year anniversary this year. And like they never did any trans programming, and we really started a trailblazing trend. I looked at the project and I looked at what's going on afterwards, and Lee was very intentional about even after I left, making sure that the work continues. And I looked at the calendar for last October, which is Northeastern's, is it October? October, and the African American Institute had a whole month's worth of LGBTQ programming. And I'm telling you, literally 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 2 years ago, there was nothing. And to know that like we can start sparks and we can individually create change that is not just individual, but it's lasting. I think that's more important. I think it's not just, hey, let's do a program and then the work, we did great work to showcase and get a sticker for doing the great work. It's like, how do we make this work intentional and lasting? How do we make this work? And it's also, I think that's the other thing I learned in our project, is like, how do you create an infrastructure so that, because that was my last year, how do you create an infrastructure so when you leave, the next girl, the next queen, the next, whoever's coming up after you can pick up the work, and that there's layers and there's instructions and there's, and all this archived, and I think that whoever's coming after me, they're gonna have a model, they're gonna have administrators that are actually striving to be more culturally aware of what's going on in campuses. I think that's also the other challenge, is that like students can be the most progressive, forward-thinking, but if they're working with administrations or staffs that are not culturally competent, it becomes a huge barrier.
Really wanted to do. And I always tell people, you never know what you really want to do until you actually do it. So tell your students that. It's okay not to know at 20 something where you're going. If you're in the 20 something category, that's cool too. But sometimes you have to do things in order to know what they entail, or what your life is going to look like, or what your how you want to shape your professional career. And so use your early 20s while your frontal lobe is developing, because that doesn't become solidified until you're about 25. So use that time to experience the world, to work, to meet people, to travel, to figure out who you are, what you want to do, and how you want to leave your indelible mark on the world. I saw a sticker at the opening reception that said, be yourself, everyone else is taken. And I truly, truly believe that. And so as you do work at your respective institutions, it requires courage. It really does, and it requires a significant amount of integrity, right? Which to me is doing the right thing even when no one's looking. And so when you go home or you pull into work in the morning and you're thinking about, okay, what is my day going to consist of? Or what's my goal, or what's my objective, or how do I want to bring students to the table and embark on a new project, maybe at an institution that may or may not support you. It really takes a lot for you to dig deep and sort of stand, maybe in the face of a room full of a handful of people, or maybe in the face of a large audience. But I share these experiences with you because I had zero experience sort of being a grassroots organizer. Rutgers in New Jersey is the largest public university. I mean, I'm sure you know, we have 3 campuses in North, Central, and South Jersey. And I attended the campus which is in Central Jersey in New Brunswick, where there are probably, 15, 20,000 students. And in high school, I didn't do anything LGBTQ related either, and I grew up in a relatively mixed ethnic, financial, and sort of cultural area in Central New Jersey, and Rutgers was very much so that. And so when I attended Meharry, which as I mentioned before is in Nashville, which you would think is pretty progressive, but is relatively conservative. It's a very red state. When I was in medical school there, I would study at Panera and hear folks say, we have a black president? What's up with that? And this was during the Obama era. And so to sit in close proximity to things like that in 2014 was alarming, and also stifling. As a person of color who voted for Obama, and certainly as an activist at that point in medical school, I often felt very conflicted in spaces that I traveled in Nashville. But I used that sort of as arm to take up arms at my school and sort of create change, if you will. And so Meharry is a very small, historically black institution that is a graduate campus only. So we don't have a mascot. We don't have any sports teams. We barely have school colors. They're like burgundy and white. And our school spirit shop is this big, no bigger than this circle. And so going into it, I knew that trying to create something that would garner pride and a sense of belonging and worth at an institution that has about 770 students, I knew it would be difficult. And so there's a school of medicine, there is a school of dentistry, and there's a school of graduate studies. And so folks at Meharry are earning master's degrees at a minimum, and PhDs, MDs, or DDSs, so doctorates in those respective fields. And I just thought, okay, I'm one person in the medical school, and the medical school is about 400 and some odd people. And I just thought, man, there's a lot of people of color. There's a lot of LGBTQ-ness on campus, despite how much we've swept it under the carpet and buried it beneath the tiles. And for a school whose mission is worship of God through service to mankind, I knew there was a tall religious order.
That's like the motto?
That's the motto of the school. That's emblazoned everywhere. I mean, on bricks, on pillars.
Say it's written.
It's written.
It's written.
Okay, this is written.
It's written,
Okay.
it's unwritten. You can smell it, you can hear it, you can taste it, you can feel it. And as a person who wouldn't necessarily describe themselves as religious, when I learned that that was the motto of the school, I was like, wait a minute, is this the place I apply? I'm confused. But with medical school, if you know anything about the field, you go where you get in. And don't get me wrong, I'm extremely, extremely grateful for my experience, for my opportunity. I'm the first physician in my family. My parents are first generation college students. So to be where I am today, it would not, had it not been for Meharry, it just wouldn't. And so I'm eternally grateful for that opportunity. And attending a school like that just enlightened me to my own culture and my own identity, because I didn't necessarily move through the world as a woman of color. And now I do, especially in medicine. I mean, I don't see a lot of people who look like me, who identify the way that I do. And so when I have opportunities to have a microphone in front of CEOs and other physicians who do consulting and what have you, I use it as an opportunity to say, hey, listen, we're missing an entire population of folks. And here are some of the things that I think that we need to do, or that we need to think about as we care for people. And so my job now at the University of Miami, we're required to do like continuing medical education talks. And each time I use it as an opportunity for LGBTQ awareness. So when people see me coming, they're like, there's that chick again. They know that I'm the one that does all the LGBTQ education, which for a large public hospital, it's needed and it's important. And I got a lot of my chutzpah from Meharry. And so I did a campus-wide safe zone project. I invited this organization called the LGBTQ Gay Alliance out of New York. It's a very large organization, and they sent a trans woman to our campus to lead the safe zone training, just because I felt like I had very little experience in terms of organizing for large groups of people. I wasn't exactly sure how to target each of our different departments, but to my surprise and much to my chagrin, we had attendees from a host of different departments. Someone from finance came, someone from the Office of Student Development came. We had representatives from each of the respective divisions at our college. And at the completion of the training, the organization brought safe zone stickers, which seems like maybe a very insignificant thing, but one, it's hard as heck to take those stickers off of anything glass. So once people put them up at campus, they were there. And I knew, long after I graduated, unless you get some serious sticker removal, that thing is there. So even if y'all try to act like this never happened, or that I didn't start the LGBTQ organization, which was called Out Health, there's going to be some remnants of the rainbow around here. And professional students of color particularly, I think, have a number of underpinnings that sort of preclude them from being who they are and being able to be a healthcare professional, or wanting to disclose certain things to their patients for fear that people people may or may not want to come see them. And so we really use the project just as a way to open up the campus, to be welcoming to people who were coming through, taking tours, to people who were interviewing, as well as to funders, because like many HBCUs, funding at Meharry was an issue. And every time we had an opportunity to garner new funding, I made sure to make it a point that, hey, listen, this is an open and welcoming environment. We may have been founded in 1776 and have a mission that references, God literally in every sense of the word, but by no means are we discriminatory or exclusive of those who aren't people of color, those who may believe in other higher beings, and people who are just willing and to come as they are for a medical, dental, or graduate education. So I completed this project 3 years ago, and upon graduating, I was nervous and unsure about what part of that work was going to be continued, but I have to tell you, you can do as much as you can do in the time and the capacity that you have it. And what happens thereafter, you can't control. And so you do your work, do it confidently, leave your mark, and trust me, whether it's 1 or 10 or 100, there's power in numbers and in few as well. And so I encourage you all to just get started. The hardest part is getting started. And again, whoever comes after you, at some point, the work that you did will come to light, and somebody will be able to continue what you've done. The hardest part is just laying the foundation and laying the groundwork, and hopefully some of the things that we've shared and what we'll do in the breakout groups, which we'll do now, will help guide you in the work that